It was a cold, windy afternoon when the city buses were packed with tired workers, students, and people just trying to get home. Among them sat a quiet man in the very last row, hood up, sunglasses on, hands calmly resting on his knees. No one on the bus realized that this man was Steven Seagal, the legendary martial artist and action icon. But today, he wasn't a star. He just wanted to blend in, ride the bus in peace, and enjoy a rare, quiet moment. The bus rattled along the road, stopping every few blocks. People shuffled in and out. But at the next stop, trouble walked in. A group of teenage boys stormed onto the bus, loud, rowdy, laughing like they owned the world. At the front was their leader, a tall, skinny boy with a shaved line through his eyebrow, a leather jacket, and a cocky smirk plastered across his face. His name was Razor, and everyone in the neighborhood knew his reputation. He wasn't just a bully. He was a bully who enjoyed humiliating people. The gang stomped down the aisle, pushing passengers aside just for fun. One of them kicked a man's backpack. Another made fun of an old lady's hat. People kept their heads down, pretending not to see anything, because bullies like Razor were dangerous. If you looked at them wrong, they'd make you regret it. Then Razor saw something different, something that intrigued him. In the back row, a man sitting completely still. No reaction, no fear, no annoyance, just calm. Razor stopped walking. He tilted his head. "Yo, guys, look at this dude," he whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. The gang looked. A mysterious guy in a hood, sunglasses, sitting like a statue. Razor grinned. "Oh, he thinks he's tough. Look at him, all quiet. I bet he's hiding that shiny bald head under that hood." The gang burst into laughter. Razor stepped closer to Steven, examining him like a hunter studying prey. He didn't recognize him, not even a little. To Razor, this was just another quiet man he could pick on. Another victim. Another chance to show dominance in front of his friends. Razor smirked and said the words that would start everything. "Watch this. I'm gonna make this dude look real stupid today." And with that, the bus ride from normal to chaotic began. Razor strutted down the narrow aisle like he owned the entire bus. His boots thumped loudly with each step, and every passenger he passed sank deeper into their seats, praying he wouldn't turn his attention toward them. The bus driver glanced in the mirror, clearly noticing the trouble, but like everyone else, he stayed silent. People had learned not to interfere with Razor. Razor stopped 2 feet away from Steven Seagal, staring at the back of his hooded head. Steven didn't move, not an inch. His posture was still, almost peaceful. That stillness irritated Razor more than anything. "Hey," Razor said loudly. No response. Razor's smile twisted. "Oh, so this guy's too good to talk now." His gang members snickered behind him. One of them pointed and whispered loudly, "Maybe he's asleep, bro." Razor rolled his eyes. "Nah, he's awake. Look at his fingers, he's alert. He thinks he's a ninja or something. If only he knew." Razor looked around to make sure everyone was watching. He loved attention, loved humiliating people publicly. And today, he wanted a performance. From his backpack, he pulled out a small white can, hair removal foam. Not shaving cream, not prank foam. Real hair removal cream, the kind that burns skin if left too long. Passengers gasped. A few shook their heads desperately, trying to warn Steven with their eyes. But Steven sat there, motionless, like a mountain that didn't acknowledge the wind. Razor held the can up like a trophy. "Yo, imagine this dude waking up bald tomorrow." His friends roared with laughter. One older woman near the front finally spoke. "Young man, don't you dare do that. That's dangerous." Razor snapped his head toward her. "Mind your business, Grandma." She flinched and looked away. Razor turned back to Steven. He took a step closer, then another, each one heavier than the last. The bus grew silent, so silent that people could hear the soft hum of the engine. Razor shook the can. SSSSHHHHK, SSSSHHHKKK. The sound echoed in the bus. "Yo," one boy whispered nervously. "Maybe we should just leave him alone." Razor cut him off. "Shut up. I'm doing this." He leaned in close to Steven's ear. "You know, man, staying quiet doesn't protect you. Not from me." Still no reaction. Razor's confidence exploded. He aimed the nozzle right at the top of Steven's hood. Before attacking, he turned dramatically to the crowd, raising his eyebrows like a comedian ready to deliver a punchline. "Y'all ready?" he asked. No one answered. And then, with one violent push, "Fumph!" A thick wave of white foam blasted over Steven's head, coating his hood, neck, and shoulders. The gang burst out laughing, slapping their knees and pointing. "Oh my God, bro, he got him. Look at his head, haha. He's gonna be bald for life." Passengers gasped in shock. Some covered their mouths. Some looked away, not wanting to witness what came next. Steven slowly lifted his hand. Foam dripped from his fingers. He wiped the cream away from his eyes, revealing a calm, cold expression beneath the sunglasses. Razor stepped back half a step. He didn't expect Steven to look so unfazed. The entire bus held its breath, waiting, watching, trying to predict what this mysterious man would do next. Have you ever seen a bully pick the wrong person to mess with? Tell me in the comments, and let me know which country or city you're watching from right now. Steven took a deep breath, and the moment of truth was about to begin. The bus felt like it wasn't moving anymore. The wheels were turning, the engine was humming, but inside, time froze. Steven Seagal sat there with hair removal foam dripping slowly from his head and shoulders. Razor stood frozen too, the can still in his hand, trembling just slightly. His gang members' laughter died instantly. One by one, their smiles faded. Steven finally spoke, but his voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was quiet, controlled, like a lion who doesn't roar unless he intends to kill. "You done?" he said. The words were soft, but they hit Razor like a hammer. Razor forced a smirk, trying to recover his bravado. "Yeah, old man. I'm done. What you gonna do about it?" Steven didn't blink, didn't move. Instead, he slowly stood up. And when he rose to his full height, every single person on the bus felt a shift, like the temperature dropped or the air thickened. Steven wasn't huge physically, but his presence filled the space. Razor instinctively stepped back. His gang instinctively stepped even further. Steven slid the foam off his jacket with the back of his hand. It fell to the floor with a sickening plop. He looked Razor dead in the eyes. "You picked the wrong bus." His tone was calm, almost too calm. Razor swallowed, his throat clicking, but he tried to keep acting tough. "Man, don't try to scare me. I run this whole block." Steven tilted his head slightly. "You don't even run your own fear." Silence. A deep, uncomfortable silence. Passengers were frozen, afraid to move, afraid to blink, afraid to even breathe. The bus driver pretended to focus on the road, but kept looking through the mirror every few seconds. Then Steven stepped forward. One step. Heavy. Solid. Like a man who had spent his entire life walking into danger. Razor lifted the can again, but his grip shook. "Back up. I ain't playing." Steven took another step. He was close enough now that Razor could see his reflection in Steven's sunglasses. And what he saw wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was something worse, indifference. Steven looked at the can. "You know what that foam does to skin?" Razor blinked. Steven continued, voice steady. "Breaks it down. Burns it. Peels it off if you leave it too long." Razor's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't really thought that far. Steven leaned in. "You could have blinded me." Passengers murmured. Razor's gang looked shocked. None of them expected the prank to cross that line. Steven reached up and gently grabbed Razor's wrist, not violently, but firmly. Razor froze. He couldn't move. Steven's grip wasn't crushing, but it was final. Steven held Razor's wrist with one hand, and with the other, he slowly tilted the can so the nozzle faced Razor himself. Razor's breath caught. His gang took a step back. Steven said quietly, "You think it's funny to humiliate people?" Razor's lips parted, but no words came out. Steven pressed a bit harder on his wrist. Not enough to hurt. Enough to teach. "You think fear gives you power?" Steven continued. "You mistake attention for respect." Razor trembled. Passengers watched with wide eyes. No one dared speak. "You're not a leader," Steven said. "You're a scared kid hiding behind noise." The words shattered Razor. His jaw tightened. His bravado cracked. Steven released his wrist. Slowly, deliberately. Razor didn't move. Didn't even breathe. Steven held the can in front of him. "You want to feel what you put on my head?" he asked softly. Razor shook his head instantly. No, man. Look, I was just messing around." Steven stepped back a little and faced him directly. "I know, and that's the problem." Razor's friends looked down, ashamed. The tension in the bus felt like it might split the walls. Steven lowered the can. He didn't spray Razor. He didn't strike him. He didn't even yell. He simply said, "Sit down." Razor blinked. "W what?" Sit. One word, but sharp as a blade. Razor, the self-proclaimed king of the streets, the loudest, boldest, most arrogant bully in the neighborhood, slowly lowered himself into a seat. Passengers exhaled, relieved, but also stunned. Steven turned to Razor's gang. You three, sit, and keep quiet. They didn't argue. They didn't move. They obeyed immediately. Steven wiped the last bit of foam from his jacket, then calmly sat back in his original seat, not even looking at Razor. The bus began to breathe again. The tension dissolved like smoke. An old man in the back whispered, "That's real strength." A teenager whispered, "Bro, he didn't even hit them." A woman near the front wiped tears from her eyes. Steven closed his eyes again, settling into silence as if nothing happened. But everyone knew. Nothing on that bus would ever return to normal. Tell me, if you were on that bus, what would you do? And from which country or city are you watching this story? For a long moment, the bus was completely silent. The only sound was the engine humming beneath everyone's feet and the faint rattling of loose metal panels as the vehicle shook through the city streets. Razor sat stiffly in his seat, staring straight ahead, trying to hide the fear in his eyes. His gang whispered nervously beside him, their earlier confidence evaporating like steam. Each of them kept glancing at Steven Seagal, who sat calmly in the back, hands resting on his knees like nothing had happened. It didn't make sense. Anyone else would have yelled. Anyone else would have fought back. Anyone else would have demanded punishment. But Steven was still, controlled, completely in command without lifting a finger. That's when the whispers began. A middle-aged man, too, rose up, frowned, leaning toward his wife. Wait a second, that guy looks familiar. His wife adjusted her glasses, peeking over the seat. You mean the tall man in the back? She whispered. Yes. Look at the jaw, the posture. Doesn't he look like? A teenager sitting ahead of them suddenly turned around with a gasp. Bro, I know him. Passengers turned. Eyes widened. Razor swallowed hard. The teen squinted, then whispered loudly enough for half the bus to hear. Guys, that's Steven Seagal. The name didn't land softly. It hit like an explosion. Heads turned. Phones lifted. Murmurs spread like fire on dry grass. No way. It really is him. I've seen all his movies. Oh my God. That's why he didn't react. He's trained. That kid poured foam on Steven Seagal. Razor felt the blood drain from his face. His gang members began shrinking into their seats, hands covering their mouths as they realized the scale of what they had just done. One of them whispered shakily, Dude, we're dead. Another said, That man breaks bones for breakfast. The bus driver kept glancing in the mirror, eyes widening more each time. Steven, however, didn't move. He sat quietly, letting the realization settle over the crowd like dust. Then, someone else stood up, an older man with a cane, trembling but excited. I saw him fight in Japan years ago, he said proudly. That man is a martial arts legend. Passengers gasped again. Phones began recording. Razor covered his face with his hands. His chest tightened. His heartbeat hammered against his ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wanted to humiliate someone, not become the biggest laughingstock in the city. One of his own gang members elbowed him. Razor, man, apologize. Do something. Razor glared at him. I'm not apologizing to anyone. But the sentence died halfway through, because Steven finally turned his head toward Razor. Just a slight turn. Just enough for Razor to see his own reflection in Steven's sunglasses. Razor froze. His voice disappeared. Steven didn't speak. He didn't threaten. He didn't even stand. But something in that one, quiet look told Razor everything. This was the calm before a storm he did not want to face. The teenager filming whispered loudly, Yo, this is gonna go viral. Razor finally met someone he can't push. Razor snapped at him. Shut up. But the boy didn't. Nobody did. The entire bus was now focusing on Razor. The bully, the self-proclaimed leader, the tough guy who suddenly looked like a trembling child. Steven Seagal leaned forward just slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. His voice came out low, calm, and razor-sharp. Still feeling brave? Razor's throat tightened. And no, sir. The sir slipped out unconsciously, but the moment it did, the whole bus reacted. A wave of laughter. A wave of shock. A wave of satisfaction washing over the passengers who had feared Razor's gang for so long. Steven continued. You humiliated me. You tried to hurt me. But more importantly, you showed these people who you really are. Razor stared at the floor. Every word felt like a punch. Steven tilted his head. You're not in charge here. You never were. Razor's gang tried to sink into their seats, as if they could disappear into the upholstery. Then something unexpected happened. A little girl from the front, maybe 10 years old, turned around and asked, "Mister, are you going to beat him up?" The bus held its breath. Steven looked at her and shook his head softly. No, that's not strength. Those words struck Razor harder than any punch ever could. Passengers murmured in agreement. Steven continued, his voice calm and steady. A real leader doesn't humiliate the weak. A real fighter doesn't hurt people to feel powerful. And a real man, he paused, knows when to sit down and shut up. Razor felt tears pricking the corners of his eyes, not from fear, but from the brutal truth carved into every syllable. The bus stopped at a red light. Everyone waited. Everyone watched. Slowly, shakily, Razor stood. The bus tensed. Razor turned to Steven and whispered, "I'm sorry." Razor's apology hung in the air like a fragile piece of glass, thin, trembling, ready to shatter with the slightest pressure. Passengers stared at him, stunned. His gang stared at him, disappointed. And Steven Seagal simply watched. The bus rolled forward again, the engine humming softly, but the tension on board didn't ease. If anything, it tightened. Because everyone could sense something. Razor wasn't done. Not yet. His apology wasn't real. It was fear talking. Fear of humiliation. Fear of punishment. Fear of the truth. He sat down again, shaking slightly, but his jaw clenched. His hands balled into fists. His eyes twitched, flicking from Steven to the passengers, to the cameras still recording him. The shame was too much. Whispers behind him only made it worse. He got humbled. He's not so tough now. He apologized like a little kid. Razor's face burned. His gang tried to shrink away from him, but Razor snapped back into anger. He stood abruptly. "Nobody records me," he shouted. Passengers flinched. Phones lowered. He stormed toward a teenager holding a phone. "Delete that video right now." The teen shrank away, terrified. Steven didn't move. He didn't even turn. But his voice cut through Razor's rage like ice. "Sit down." Razor spun around. Quiet had never felt so loud. He tried to bluff again. This doesn't concern you." Steven finally lifted his head. "Sit." One word. Simple. Deadly. Razor froze mid-step. His breath caught in his throat. His knees felt weak. Not from fear of violence, but from the overwhelming pressure of a man who didn't need to threaten to be dangerous. The passengers stared wide-eyed. Steven didn't need to glare. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone was enough to crush Razor's defiance. But Razor's pride refused to die quietly. He stepped forward, chest puffing up. "You think you're better than me?" he barked. "You think everybody should listen to you just because you're some old actor? Huh?" Steven's expression didn't change. Razor kept ranting, voice cracking under the weight of his own desperation. "You don't know me, man. I run this block. People respect me. They fear me." Steven finally stood. The passengers gasped. Razor stumbled back. Steven didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "You don't have respect," Steven said quietly. "You have silence. Silence bought by fear isn't respect. It's weakness." Razor tried to interrupt. "No." Steven lifted a single finger. Razor went silent instantly. The bus went silent too. Steven continued, voice calm and firm. "You think fear makes you powerful? Let me tell you something." He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. Razor's gang pressed against the windows, as if trying to melt through the glass to escape. Steven stopped just inches from Razor. Fear doesn't build leaders. It builds cowards who hide behind noise. Razor's lip trembled. Steven lowered his sunglasses just enough to reveal his cold, sharp eyes. "And you, Razor." Passengers leaned forward. "You are loud." Those words hit Razor harder than any punch. His bravado shattered like glass dropped from a rooftop. His throat tightened. His eyes darted around, searching for even one face that supported him. He found none. Steven continued, his voice slicing through Razor's ego. "You humiliate others to avoid facing yourself. You bully because you're afraid of being small. You attack strangers because you don't know how to confront your own failures. And the saddest part," he paused, "is that you think this makes you strong." Razor's legs weakened. He grabbed a handrail to stay standing. Passengers nodded quietly. Some whispered, "That's true." Others murmured, "He needed to hear that." Steven stepped back, giving Razor space, but Razor felt smaller than he ever had in his life. "You wanted attention," Steven said, "and now you have it. All of it." Every phone slowly lifted again. Razor's breath shook. Steven finished. "Now show them something they've never seen from you." Razor blinked, confused. What?" he whispered. "Show courage." The entire bus fell silent. Razor swallowed, eyes darting everywhere. "Courage," he repeated. "Yes." Steven nodded. "The courage to admit you were wrong." Razor's chest heaved. His face twisted. His pride fought back. But something in Steven's steady gaze, something in the hundreds of watching eyes, something in himself, finally broke through the wall he'd built his whole life. Razor exhaled shakily. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, "I'm sorry. For real this time." The bus erupted in shocked murmurs. Steven nodded once, calmly sitting back down. And for the first time ever in his life, Razor felt light. Not powerful, not dominant. Light. Because real strength never came from fear. It came from truth. Razor's apology still echoed through the bus, surprising every single person who heard it, including Razor himself. It was the first real apology he had given in years, maybe ever. His voice had cracked, his shoulders had lowered, and for a moment, he wasn't a gang leader. He was just a kid who finally saw himself clearly. But the moment of vulnerability didn't last long. Because as soon as Razor sat back down, everyone on the bus began whispering again, but louder this time, more confident, more certain. "That is him. No doubt about it. Look at his face. It's Steven Seagal." Razor's head snapped up. His stomach dropped. His throat tightened. Everything inside him screamed, "No, no way. That can't be real. That can't be the guy I poured foam on." But the murmurs grew louder. A middle-aged woman stood and squinted through her glasses. "I knew it. I knew it was him," she shouted. A group of teenagers rushed forward with their phones raised. Sir, can we get a picture?" Steven lifted a hand calmly. "Everyone sit down. Let's keep the bus safe." The way he said it, firm, steady, gentle, sent a ripple through the passengers. People actually listened. In seconds, the rowdy excitement softened into respectful silence. Razor's heart hammered faster. He stared at Steven, eyes widening, breaths turning shallow. And then, the universe delivered the final blow. The bus driver stopped the bus abruptly, opened the small sliding window beside him, and called back. "Sir, you were Steven Seagal, right?" "Big fan. Huge fan." Razor's world shattered instantly. Passengers turned, every face confirming the truth he hoped wasn't real. Steven sighed, then finally nodded. "Yes, that's me." The bus exploded. People gasped. Some cheered. Others clapped. Phones came out everywhere. Several passengers began live streaming. Razor felt like the floor had opened beneath him. His mind raced. "I sprayed hair removal foam on Steven freaking Seagal. The Steven Seagal. In front of a whole bus. On camera." His stomach twisted violently. His throat closed. He felt dizzy. His gang members slowly leaned away from him, wanting no association with what was about to happen to their leader. One of them whispered, "Bro, you're done." Another muttered, "This is gonna hit 1,000,000 views." Razor's hands began to shake uncontrollably. He tried to stand, but his legs wobbled like wet paper. He fell back into the seat with a thud. His breath hitched in panic. Passengers were already talking. "He's dead. He picked on a martial arts master. He messed with the wrong guy today." What was he thinking? Razor covered his face with his hands, but that didn't stop the humiliation. His ears burned. His eyes stung. He could feel every stare drilling into him, every whisper stabbing him. Steven finally rose from his seat. The entire bus went silent again. He walked slowly toward Razor, not in anger, but with the stillness of someone who had already won. Razor's breath came in rapid bursts. He whispered, "Please don't hurt me." Steven stopped right in front of him. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "That's not who I am." Razor peeked through his fingers, tears gathering. Steven continued, "But you need to understand something." The passengers leaned in. "When you bully people, when you humiliate them, when you attack strangers to feel powerful, it all comes back to you." Razor sobbed quietly, trying not to. Steven crouched slightly, so he was at eye level. "Humility," he said, "isn't weakness. It's strength. Real strength." Razor sniffed hard, wiping his face clumsily. Steven gently tapped the foam can still lying beside Razor's shoe. You thought this made you a leader? Steven said. It doesn't. Razor nodded shakily. Steven continued. A leader doesn't make others small. A leader makes himself better. Razor broke down fully now, silent, trembling tears running down his face, the kind that come when a lifetime of ego finally collapses. Passengers watched silently, moved. Even Steven's expression softened. You still have time, Steven said quietly. But the boy you were 5 minutes ago has to change. Razor whispered, barely audible. I will. Steven nodded once. That's good. He stood back up, calmly returning to his seat. But the damage, and the lesson, had landed exactly where it needed to. Razor sat silently, hands covering his face, his entire identity rewritten in a single bus ride. And the bus kept rolling forward toward a future neither of them expected. By the time the bus finally reached the terminal, the story had already escaped its walls. Videos were uploaded. Clips were shared. Live streams spread. In minutes, the world knew. Passengers stepped off the bus, buzzing with excitement and disbelief. Teenagers replayed the footage again and again, shocked at how calm Steven Seagal had been. Elders shook their heads, grateful justice had come in such an unexpected way. Some nodded proudly, saying things like, "That boy needed that lesson. He met the mountain today. This is what real discipline looks like." But Razor barely moved. He sat frozen in his seat even after everyone else left, hands shaking, mind overwhelmed. His gang abandoned him the moment the doors opened, scattering like frightened birds, not wanting to be recognized or blamed. The bus driver approached him gently. "Kid, you okay?" Razor nodded weakly, though he clearly wasn't. He didn't speak. Couldn't speak. Steven walked toward the exit, but paused one last time. He looked back at Razor, not with anger, not with superiority, but with a rare kind of compassion. "Remember what I said," he told him. "Strength isn't what you do to others. It's what you do to yourself." Then he added, voice firm but fatherly, "You still have time to become someone better." Razor wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. He whispered, "Thank you, sir." Steven nodded once, then walked off the bus, his coat flowing behind him as he stepped into the cold air and disappeared into the crowd, blending in like he always did. A quiet warrior who didn't need the spotlight. The viral explosion. Within an hour, Razor's humiliation and Steven's calm dominance spread across every platform. Headlines appeared everywhere. Bully gang leader humbled by Steven Seagal on public bus. Teen gang tries to prank wrong man. Gets a life lesson instead. Steven Seagal handles bullying with zero violence. Millions of people watched the clip. Some laughed. Some cheered. Some cried. Many commented that they had never seen such controlled strength before. One user wrote, "Real power doesn't need fists." Another wrote, "That kid learned more in 10 minutes than in 10 years. Razor's name wasn't used publicly, but everyone in his neighborhood knew who he was. And suddenly, the fear people felt around him was gone. Not because Steven had beaten him, but because Steven had exposed the truth. Razor wasn't powerful. He was insecure, and the whole world had seen it. Razor's consequences. The next day, Razor didn't leave his house. Didn't meet with his gang. Didn't walk around the block pretending to be tough. Instead, he stared at his reflection for a long time, longer than he ever had. The face that used to smirk with arrogance now looked lost, confused, and strangely relieved. Steven's words kept echoing. A leader doesn't make others small. A leader makes himself better. For the first time in his life, Razor wanted to try. He went to the community center where some of the kids he used to bully hung out. He apologized, sincerely. He picked up a broom and helped clean the courtyard without being asked. He signed up for a self-discipline program run by older martial artists in the neighborhood. He started, slowly, becoming the person Steven believed he could be. Steven's message to the world. Later that week, Steven released a short statement on social media. "I do not believe in shaming or hurting young people. I believe in guiding them. Violence cannot defeat insecurity, wisdom can. If you see bullying, don't stay silent. Lead with strength, not fear." The post went viral instantly. Millions shared it. Parents showed their kids. Teachers used it in class. Gyms and dojos across the world quoted it on their walls. And Razor saved the screenshot in his phone. Maybe someday, he thought, he would thank Steven properly. If you believe bullying should never be tolerated. If you believe strength comes from discipline, not fear. Type respect in the comments. And if you want more powerful, inspiring stories like this one, subscribe and follow for the next chapter.